So you have both, in ways, stood by the sidelines of history, reported on it, covered it, been a part of it at times. And now we are in a global crisis, a worldwide pandemic where we're all in our homes. And that's what Americans are being asked to do to keep everyone safe, which is a stark contrast from some of the things that you've experienced, Tom. What are your thoughts about how the world is handling coronavirus right now?
The world is in chaos. There's a chaotic condition that exists in our world today. Um, Even our very best scientists are searching for a vaccine, searching for the answers. Clearly, they've come up with the importance of distancing, uh, the importance of wearing our mask, the importance of testing to the extent that testing is available. And of course, if you're found to have it, uh, uh, to isolate ourselves from others to the extent possible. But the chaotic nature of this is also amplified dramatically by misinformation. Misinformation. I mean, certain of the so-called news channels are full of misinformation. I regret to say it because I normally do not knock my competitors, but Fox News is really one of those most guilty, I think, of being a channel when at times they have really provided guests and analysts who is full of misinformation. We have a president who, a president who even this morning is saying that it's possible that either being injected with a disinfectant, for God's sakes, or Lysol has even come out now with a major statement urging people not to drink or ingest or in any way Lysol because of what the President of the United States said on national television last night. He also said he thought that sunlight might do it, but more than sunlight, to have light to somehow be injected to us. It's how wonderful it would be if one of these were to turn out to be a solution. But the idea of a president of the United States and news organizations who let this get onto their air. Now, CNN does its very best, particularly led by a former White House fellow, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who was my best recruit, I think, during my CNN years, although Judy Woodruff I recruited too, and I think she was spectacular in style. I think my two best recruits were Judy Woodruff from PBS and Sanjay. But, this situation is just unbelievable. Chaotic, I guess, is my best description. And also, it's such a sad time for newspapers at a time when we need newspapers not only to be reporting on the great national and international impact of coronavirus, but locally, what is happening in the in the Augusta, Georgias, or the Athens, Georgias, or the Bristol, Tennessees, or the, take you throughout California. I mean, what's happening in the redwoods of Northern California, or it is at the very time we most need our local media. They've lost subscribers, they've lost advertisers, but more than anything, and I think in part because of President Trump and all of his allies almost daily daily calling, reporting from trusted organizations, faux news. It has diminished the reputations of even many of the quality news organizations in our nation. We already we're not among the most trusted. The most trusted category, most trusted profession is the military. But at one point, we were down with the Congress and used car dealers. And this has hurt. This has hurt.
A lot of media outlets today make no bones about their political bias. And it wasn't that way when I was growing up in the profession. When we were cub reporters, we had to write things in a fair and balanced way. And if you didn't, you'd get fired. But nowadays, one of the things that drives me nuts is that you'll be watching a reporter on cable TV talk about the news and reporting the straight news. And then maybe a minute or two into that report, there's like this invisible switch that gets flipped. And now instead of reporting, the same speaker is now giving his analysis or his opinions and saying why Trump is an idiot or Trump walks on water, whatever their opinion is. And it's like there's such a mixture now of news and opinion. It's hard to know where the news stops and the opinion begins and vice versa.
Jeff, you're exactly right. Reporters should report. Editors should edit. Analysts should be those who do the opinion, and their opinions should be clearly marked as opinion or clearly shown as an analysis. Anchors should anchor. They should not be opening their shows with their opinion pieces, in my opinion. I mean, it to me, I think, has been very, very harmful at the LA Times, at Dallas, at CNN. I mean, I insisted that, and Ted Turner insisted that we not do opinion, have reporters or anchors doing opinion. You never saw, with one exception, never saw Walter Cronkite do an opinion. He did it in Vietnam after a major visit there where he basically said we're at a stalemate and unfortunately it's going to have to be a negotiated settlement. That was a powerful influence on LBJ. And I think in his case that was justified, maybe more than justified. But to see Bernard Shaw, the lead anchor of CNN, or Judy Woodruff, who was a co-anchor at the time, we just did not do opinion in our anchoring. But yes, we had people who did do opinion pieces on Crossfire, Pat Buchanan being the best example, I guess, of that. But they were clearly in opinion shows.
So you were just talking about how CNN, while you were president, had opinion-based shows, but you guys labeled them as opinion-based.
We did.
Now, I do want to step in here and stand up for the local reporters, because
Yes.
I do know that local reporters that I am friends with today are fueled by objectivity. They want to be good storytellers. They just want to report the news and be good journalists.
That's the way it should be.
And I see that in them. And I think that the shift only happens really at that national level, and only really with certain companies. Like I see it on Fox News and I see it on MSNBC, but I do think that there are national networks that try really hard to be objective and unbiased, and they still do bring in those editorial analysts to share their opinions, because that's something that the audience wants, right? Controversy sells. People want to hear people's opinions and then form their opinions based on what people they respect say. So I do want to just kind of stand up for the local reporters who are really striving to do their best, but then also find themselves all of a sudden being bought by, say, a national network that's like, hey, now that we own your local TV news station, you also have to broadcast this slightly slanted piece as part of your program.
Sinclair is doing that with its stations. And I regret it because Sinclair has such a very large number of stations, and they even impose editorials written at the management level, at the leadership level, and distributed and require that those editorials be distributed. Look, this is not a good time. It's not a really good time to look at standards and practices, although I so admire the New York Times, the Washington Post, the news pages of the Wall Street Journal, the efforts that being made now at the Los Angeles Times, but to restore the Los Angeles Times to the greatness it once had reached. It's tough because the economic conditions are so different than the ones that I had today. There are organizations like the Associated Press that maintain very high standards of accuracy and of accuracy and fairness. And I think my old network, CNN, strives. I compliment CNN on every good thing that I really see, because so much of what they do, their specials particularly, but their very global coverage of even this coronavirus, just amazing with all of their reporters. Even one yesterday going back into Wuhan, China, at great risk, the location of what is believed to be the site of the original outbreak in Wuhan, China. But I had my time at bat. I did the best I could during my 11 years at CNN and during my 17 years with the Times Mirror Company. You will rarely see me criticizing my former organizations. It's only when I see something that really gets me, because the market is different today. There was no Fox News for most of my time at CNN. For that matter, there wasn't MSNBC at my time on it. But also, I'm guided by some early principles that I mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, and the importance for some of us, both newbies coming into it, and others, to hold the line on standards and practices. I made my big mistakes. Tailwind, Cardinal Bernardin, and the Olympic Park bomber, Richard Jewell. Those were three of the biggest mistakes of my life. I made my mistakes. And I think it's important for us to not only admit mistakes, but what are the lessons learned from them?
Given the economic difficulties that the regional and local papers are facing, and maybe even local TV, it's going to give even more fuel to the online giants: Twitter, Facebook, Apple News, Google. What do you have to say to these folks? Because in a way, you're passing the baton to a new generation of journalists, and they're going to be increasingly digital. They won't be legacy media people.
I wish I knew what to say. I wish I could speak with confidence about what they should do. I mean, while I see the complexities of today, I think I also see in the new media, the opportunities, some very exciting opportunities for some of these platforms to become so much stronger, and only letting factual information flow out of Facebook, flow out. It's amazing if you hit Google, how accurate much of what you pull up when you Google somebody is accurate. Not all of it, but I just think it's an exciting time to discover how, in this new digital world, good journalism can matter even more. I do believe that people will always want to turn to some publications, yes, including some still in print, but especially online with all of the many devices that will exist. I mean, the idea now that what we read in Dick Tracy way before Christine O'Donnell was even a gleam in her dad's eye. I mean, and now, but now we have iWatches that are exactly what we're seeing in the Dick Tracy cartoons of the 1950s, and we're seeing driverless cars that were a part of science fiction in the 40s and 50s. I think it's still a really good time to go into it, but it's like going into a much more uncertain, unpredictable world. Facebook and the other need to sanitize the stuff that flows out of them, the garbage. They need to need to delete the garbage and do more that's in the public interest. We used to hear that term so much that I thought I could never hear it anymore, but most of these need to serve in the public interest. I look at the manipulation by the Russians, by all of the others, and the way that is affecting our elections. Well, Facebook is a publisher too. Facebook can have editors too. Facebook can sanitize. It has a First Amendment right not to distribute, just as newspapers have a First Amendment right not to publish something that they don't feel is published. I wish I had a clearer vision, Jeff, than I do on this.
If I could take this opportunity to put in a little plug for The Latest, or thelatest.com. It's a news aggregator. So we're grabbing news from all across the web on all topics, and we put it all in one place. But we go out of our way to be completely nonpartisan. So if it's a political story, we'll show Fox News, Huffington Post, New York Times, BBC, Al Jazeera, side by side, all playing the same story at the same time. So you can click through and see the different takes that the different media outlets are putting on a story. And then we have this news feed that runs down the left side of the page with all of that content that we are grabbing from across the net. But on the right side, we have opinions, and it's clearly labeled opinion. So we do keep a separation between news and opinion. And then our columnists, just like our news feed, are from across the board. We have liberals, moderates, conservatives. We keep it all civil. We do our best to address all the problems that you just identified in social media. We handpick the sources that we allow into our system. So we don't have any problem with fake news or any of that. Now we're just getting started, and we have a long way to go, but I feel hopeful. I think we're on the right track. I mean, I get compliments every day from people saying how important it is what we're doing.
Well, I'm an early supporter of your project, and I am. I love the way you named it. I love the way you branded it, because we all want the latest.